Hey, everybody. Welcome to the stream. This, for anybody who is new, this is Subscriber Appreciation Day. It's something I try to do on the last Sunday of every month where I get a really cool guest to come and talk with me and you guys and do a whole thing for a few hours. But so that's what I'm in the so at the moment, I'm going to hang out with you guys for a little bit so you guys don't walk away empty-handed. I have to... today's guest is Scott Niswander from Nerdsync, and I'm slightly concerned that he might have forgotten. So let's just... I'm just going to talk with you guys for a little bit. And if I don't hear from Scott in the next, let's say, 15, 20 minutes, then we'll put it down and we'll see if we can reschedule. So I'm sorry about that, but these things happen. So yeah, also there's a cat, so that's always entertaining. Did you hear about Justin Trudeau going to the flood site for a photo op? Yes, I have heard about that. Justin Trudeau went to... So Ottawa's flooding right now, and he went to a flood site and basically been told that by his arriving, he slowed down flood handling operations. And I don't know. He slowed down the operations, and then on top of that, he did it because he's a very media conscious person, and so he did it to look like he was doing something. Brain for Breakfast passed away recently. I think I don't know who that is, but that is sad. I think Kelly was my wife was watching some eulogies of him earlier today. But I don't know who that is. But that I feel bad for any YouTubers dying. That's unfortunate. If he's a YouTuber, I'm just guessing. Oh boy. In the meantime, let's talk about some of your questions. Just copy some of these down. All right. Cody made a tweet about him. I'm sure he did. I don't know. He sounds familiar. But it looks like he does those like pull-in ball type things. Yeah. Well, that sucks. That's not good. All right. What's your opinion on PewDiePie finally addressing the Christchurch shooting in a video? I haven't actually heard that. So yeah. I don't watch PewDiePie on the regular, so I don't really know what he's been up to. I do know that the synagogue shooting that happened yesterday also mentioned PewDiePie. I don't know what PewDiePie's response to this stuff is. I'm hoping that it's, if you're racist, do not watch my content. I do not like you. Go away. But I hope it's something like that. I imagine he'll be like, it's bad and Nazism is bad. Because I can't think of if he was going to address it in any way. Anyways, thoughts on the Netherrealm genociding white men in the Jax ending. I've only heard that the Manosphere is really mad, or that the like racist, but I repeat myself, the racist internet is mad. So I guess my guess is that the new Mortal Kombat game, which, you know, okay, that the new Mortal Kombat game is like ends with whatever player that you played as getting their wish come true, and that Jax's is to get rid of slavery, and that then it ends with like a alternate history in which slavery never happened. That might be a thing. I think that's kind of neat. I thought that alternate history people would like that a lot, but obviously, not to knock the alternate history community, but there is a lot of alternate history community people who they like the alternate histories in which fascism and white supremacy reign supreme, not ones where like where slavery doesn't happen. And so hence why, you know, we've relitigated the Civil War over and over again, but never like slavery. But I don't know. I've also heard that the Manosphere is mad that I also heard that the Manosphere is mad that women are not dressed like strippers in the Mortal Kombat game, which, you know, I was you know, that was a thing, I guess. So that's a thing. It sounds like a Mortal Kombat game came out, and the fragile snowflakes on the right are freaking out about it. It does, like, the whole thing about like if it's about like getting a wish if you win Mortal Kombat, that sounds very much like and I don't know if this is a series that continued. I haven't played. Okay, I'll level with you guys about video games. I have not owned. I have a Nintendo Switch, and the Nintendo Switch was the first console I purchased since the PS2. So I have not played a lot of console games. But the other thing is, I remember one of the last video games I really liked was a game called Twisted Metal Black. And I really was a big fan of the Twisted Metal series, which getting a wish if you win the tournament was sort of but like it was always like some sort of like, you know, funhouse monkey paw wish. So that's like kind of like the story of if that's kind of like what what's it called? If that's the story of the new Mortal Kombat, that's kind of cool. But man, how come Twisted Metal hasn't had like a reboot lately? The last Twisted Metal, which I think was Twisted Metal Black, had an amazing plot. They took like this series that was like kind of like this dark, goofy stuff, and then they made it super, super dark. And I remembered like, I just remember the storyline being just the most black, dark stuff that you could think of. And I was like, this is so cool. The one that stuck out to me was there was one of the Twisted Metal guys, a guy on a motorcycle. By the way, Twisted Metal was like a game where you were on a car that was decked out in weapons and you basically like tried to kill each other. But one of them was a guy named Mr. Grimm, I think his name. And he rode around on a motorcycle wearing a skull helmet. And in the Twisted Metal Black, where they like did like the grim dark version of it, they made him a Vietnam vet who was forced by the Viet Cong to eat his friend to survive, and that he then like wore his skull as a thing, and like that like sort of he like went insane. He like refused to take it off, and that was a cool story. I think like Axel, who was like the guy who had his hands inside this like giant two-wheeler. He had his father put them in there. There was like a psychotic ice cream truck clown monster. Yeah, that game was awesome. I remember I have very fond memories of playing Twisted Metal Black, which I think was the last in the series. But hopefully I hope it's at some point going to get rebooted, because that was a fun series, and it's a fun party game, and I imagine that the online, what's it called? The online world could the online gameplay of that could do really well, because Twisted Metal was also an amazing like party game for split screen stuff. That was awesome. So I did while I was talking about Twisted Metal, I did get a message from Scott saying that he would be here in a second. So hang on to your butts. I will entertain you while we do this. I don't know. Every time I think of Mortal Kombat, I think of Twisted Metal. Maybe that, I don't know why. But like the thing about Mortal Kombat too is like I've always been really bad with consoles, and so when I was a kid, not only was the PlayStation 2 the last console I ever owned, but I think the first console I ever owned was a PlayStation 1. And so I never, even though I was like the age for consoles, I have no Mario nostalgia. I have no Sonic nostalgia because when I was a kid, my parents never got me a like Nintendo or Super Nintendo or Sega or anything like that. Because my dad had a work laptop that I was allowed to use at night. And so my like nostalgia for like games like that, like most millennials my age have reserved for like Nintendo and Zelda and stuff like that, I have for like Doom and like Warcraft and like Diablo and stuff like that. Because those are the games I played, and Command and Conquer when I was a kid. Not to intrude, how old are you? I am 30. I will be 31 in November. So I was born in 1988. So and also briefly, I had an Atari when I was a kid. I had an Atari that my grandmother got at like a garage sale, probably full of games that are worth like, oh wait, Atari can wait. Scott has arrived.
Hello, I'm so sorry I'm late.
It's all right. I probably should have like said anything to you since 12 days ago.
No, it's good. I had it in my calendar, and then very last minute, I went to see Endgame for a third time. So, but it just got out, and I'm here now, and hopefully I'm not too late.
Good. So, anyways, so Scott here is the owner and the sole proprietor of Nerdsync. Would you like to like pitch your stuff?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I'm eating food because I also haven't eaten today. Yeah, so Nerdsync is a YouTube channel where I use comics and superheroes to teach about real-world history, science, philosophy, culture, and art, and all sorts of cool stuff like that. So if you like learning about the real world through comics and superheroes, come on down. And I've had you on a couple videos recently,
yes,
which has been very exciting. Some of my favorite videos to work on. So thank you so much.
Not a problem, and it's a joy to have you on here because I think a lot of my more recent subscribers who might be in the chat are thanks to your recent platforming of my social justice warrior agenda.
More than happy.
So I've got a big list of questions, but I was just talking about consoles because the big thing that came up is everyone. Well, first of all, I don't know our position on Endgame at the moment. I haven't seen it yet. I imagine we're going to... Okay, here's the thing. I haven't seen it, but I also am not a person who gives any shits about spoilers. But then again, the audience will. So...
That's true. I will not give any spoilers.
Is it... I imagine... Okay. All right, one thing that you can say about Endgame and that I want to hear is... Mm-hmm. Is there enough surprises that would make not being spoiled worth it?
There are plenty of surprises. There are also plenty of like big grand hero moments that are just I think even if you get those spoiled, seeing them on screen is like it's indescribable.
Yeah, I'm imagining it's a lot of very expensive fight scenes, and that all of the people whose contracts don't renew either die or they retire, and that all of the movies that are currently slated to have sequels all survive and have epic hero moments.
Who's to say? I'm not going to say anything.
That's my guess, because it's really hard to set up tension. Like I remember when Infinity War came out last year, that they were like, "Oh man, Thanos snaps and like wipes out half the universe," but it's like half the people who got wiped out we know have movies coming out next year, so like they can't die.
Yeah. I really don't want to say anything, but I really enjoyed it. If you haven't seen it, if you're on the fence about it, go check it out. It's very satisfying. It's my third time I've watched it. And it has, the more I watch it, the more like plot holy questions I have, but like I'm very much the kind of person who will be like, I will gladly ignore any plot holes if you give me something that has like really strong themes and it's just very satisfying to watch and very fun. So I know a lot of my friends are like trying to pick apart, like, how could this happen if this was set up and then this? And I'm just like, I don't care. Like, I see why you're complaining, but I don't care. It was a good movie.
Yeah. What we can talk about is the epic superhero movie I saw this weekend, which was a small indie film from DC Comics about Mr. Ron Aquaman, who
That's right.
Has a dynastic struggle to claim a pretender title to the throne, to the Game of Thrones of Atlanta or Atlantis, and then also at the same time made by a director who thinks that the viewer of the movie will get bored if an explosion doesn't happen about every 2.5 minutes, which was an amazing combination. Like there were several times in the movie where it's like an explosion happened and it's like, oh, it's like the movie got bored.
Yes. So that was one of because I saw Aquaman twice in theaters. And the first time I was just so enamored because Aquaman's my favorite superhero. So I was like, yes, I love this. And I'm so glad that it's not the movie has problems for sure, but at least it's better than a lot of other DC movies, I think. But the second time through,
high bar to hit right now.
Yeah, right. But the second time through, I was like, all right, I'm picking up on some of these issues. And definitely one of them that I kept coming back to was, yeah, boy, this movie really loves surprise explosions. Like there are at least 4 or 5 times when like characters will just be having a nice moment. It'll be nice and quiet. And then all of a sudden just out of nowhere, it's like, oh, okay. So we're just doing more explosions.
There's also, I don't know. We can get into it in a second, but like the story, what we were wrapping up in like the preamble was people were asking, have you heard about the very normal anger about a certain new addition to the Mortal Kombat franchise that has become a thing?
Oh, I don't know. I've not heard this.
All right. So a new Mortal Kombat has come out.
Mm-hmm.
And the very normal side of the internet is angry about 2 aspects of it. One, they did what admittedly very unbrand-like thing for Mortal Kombat, and now the women don't look like strippers. Okay.
Yes. I did hear that. Yes.
Second is, I'm guessing, do you remember the Twisted Metal series?
No.
Okay, I forgot you're a little bit younger than me, but it was like the premise of it was like you go through this like war, like this like kind of like battle royale thing, and if you win the tournament, you get a wish, any wish you want.
Okay.
So that's apparently the premise of this Mortal Kombat. And Jax, if you remember Jax, the Mortal Kombat guy, the man with the robot arms.
Yes, I know Jax.
If he wins, his wish is to have undone slavery. And so he unwrites slavery and like, I don't know exactly what happens, but basically black people are like awesome. And
okay.
And apparently this is tantamount to white genocide. And
obviously, yeah.
So these 2 things together have gotten the internet very, very, very upset.
Well, I can't imagine why. I thought the internet was full of very normal, rational people.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. No, yeah, that's it's very, especially like the fact that people are even complaining about the first problem about like, oh, women aren't dressed for battle wearing nothing anymore. Like, how dare they put clothes on women in these games? It's like, who would complain about that and like be so serious and genuine about that complaint? Like, come on, guys.
The thing though is that like the video game people, like the video game companies are like always having these like tepid, lukewarm reactions. But if I remember when this happened in comics, like the people in comics were like, no, you're wrong. We're just going to do this now.
Yeah. There are certainly, there is one moment of Endgame, and again, I won't spoil it, but there's one moment that I'm sure the spoilery side of the internet desperately wants to talk about and critique and say is like the worst, most like, a friend called it it felt like a checklist sort of a thing on Marvel was trying to appease a certain group of people. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Maybe I'm in that group of people because I loved it. I thought it was great.
Oh, is there a reason that people are going to get mad at Endgame now?
I think there's 10 to 12 seconds of a 3-hour movie that I think is going to really upset some people. I'm optimistic. I really hope I'm wrong. I haven't actually heard too many people complain about it. I heard one of my friends say that it felt like they were just trying to appease a certain group of people. But I don't know, maybe in a couple weeks, maybe in a couple months, maybe if it comes out on home release, people will take that scene and they'll start making lots of think pieces about it. But I thought it was great.
So then what you're saying is either Samantha Wilson or what's the other one? America something?
Oh, America Chavez?
Yeah. So Samantha Wilson and American Chavez are both confirmed for Captain America 4.
Look, I'm not going to spoil anything, okay? You can't get me to say any details whatsoever.
And what's the other one that makes everyone mad? I mean, there's my favorite superhero who I'm of the opinion desperately needs a movie, and then we can talk about this because there's business involved in this part too. Mm-hmm. So maybe you know way more about this stuff than I do because you read comic books and know the politics. All right. So let me just test a couple assumptions. One, are the Inhumans basically was at one point Marvel's long-term plan to write off mutants because they couldn't get the rights from Fox?
I feel like that was absolutely their plan for sure. Because even in the comics, right, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch were always Magneto's children. They were mutants. They were a part of the X-Men sort of thing. They were also a part of the Avengers a lot. There was a lot of crossover, but they were supposed to be mutants. And then once the MCU started getting popular and they introduced those two characters into the MCU, the Marvel comics were like, what if we just retcon it in a really confusing way to say that they were experiments the way that they were in Age of Ultron? Because we don't need them to be mutants because we don't have rights to mutants. So let's just kind of get rid of all of that. And then Inhumans would be even on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they did a lot with the Inhumans to try and make them like how the X-Men have been treated throughout a lot of the comic run. So yes, I will say I don't know if they ever have confirmed that or if they ever will, but it was very clear that that's certainly what the idea was.
All right. So then step 2, do you think that now that the amorphous blob that is Disney has reabsorbed X-Men, that the future of Inhumans is sort of in jeopardy?
Inhumans was already in jeopardy ever since the TV show they tried to do didn't work out very well. Because I don't know if you remember, a few years back they announced an Inhumans movie, and then that just was never mind.
They were playing around with Vin Diesel playing Black something.
Black Bolt, yeah. And then they were just no, let's make it a TV show, and the TV show was pretty bad, but and so I think they were just you know what, maybe we just don't need to do the Inhumans. Maybe we can just try other things. And now that they have the X-Men, I think Kevin Feige said that they're not going to do anything with the X-Men for a long period of time, which that's fair. That's fine. I also just don't feel like we need it. There's still another X-Men movie coming out later this year, and it's probably not good, but I'll watch it anyway.
I have higher hopes for the MCU absorbing the Fantastic Four in a neat way, because they would fit in pretty well.
I think so. I mean, I would love it if they kept doing kind of what they did with the first Captain America movie and Captain Marvel, fleshing out the past of the MCU a little bit more. So if they made a Fantastic Four movie, like a 1960s kind of spy thriller, that would be really fun to me. Because originally the Fantastic Four were, I talk about this way too much in so many of my videos, but the Fantastic Four were created to be a response to a lot of Cold War fears. They were going to outer space specifically in the comics to like beat the commies there. And so like I don't know, that would be fun to see those characters in the era in which they were created.
Yeah, and then you get to have you can have some Pym, you could have some Carter. Like you've still got like a rogues gallery in that period.
You sure do. Oh yeah, I mean even Howard Stark is still around in that area. Man, yeah, you have so much of the MCU that's in that time period that we just haven't seen too much of. So I'd love that.
Man, a Fantastic Four movie in which like you get like a small cameo from the cast of Agent Carter, and like that'd be fun.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be so much fun.
So then, if yes, that the Inhumans brand is not really doesn't have that much of a future, does that mean that my hopes of the Kamala Khan movie are going to be basically gone?
See, that's a tough one because Kamala Khan's one of my favorite modern day superheroes. I love her so much and I want her to be in the MCU. I figured that she would appear on S.H.I.E.L.D. I haven't followed S.H.I.E.L.D. for a really long time, so maybe she already has popped up on there and I just don't know. But I figured that's probably where she would make an entrance. However, boy, I would love for her to get
a movie.
Like, just take the vibe that we get from like the Spider-Man movies, Spider-Man Homecoming and Far From Home, where it's very like high school kid, you know, just trying to deal with powers and responsibility. And like, that's basically like Kamala Khan basically is like a modern Peter Parker for like a new generation. And
less
like
of the science is stuff, but yeah.
But like, I don't know. It's still like a goofy kid trying to figure things out, and it's so good. And yeah, I would love that. You know what? I think what Marvel should be doing, what the MCU should be doing from this point forward is, and what they probably will do is have a lot of crossovers. Like they started with Thor Ragnarok, like having Hulk and Thor in like just separate, like it's not an Avengers movie, but it's them together. And then I think even Spider-Man Homecoming had Spider-Man and Iron Man crossing over. I think they're going to do a lot more of those crossovers in the future. So having like a Spider-Man movie where Kamala Khan is introduced and like having just a pair of wacky teens trying to figure out their powers, that would be fun.
I just realized I need to do an introduction because Kamala Khan, for anybody that is Miss Marvel, who is known for being one of the first like really big name superheroes to be made after the MCU had already started. And on top of that, being from New Jersey, which is very controversial in Marvel universe, but also a 16-year-old Pakistani American Muslim woman. And so, yeah all the things. The internet would.
Yeah, the internet. I don't know. They certainly lost it already when she was introduced, but I think hopefully people will have calmed down by that point. The one thing I will say is because her origin story is so tied to Carol Danvers, the MCU is not quite set up for that because Carol's existence is supposed to be a secret to everyone. So like, you know, even though her movie took place during the 90s, if it got out there that she existed, then like that would be one thing to be like, oh, that's why Kamala Khan like, you know, looks up to her because she's a superhero that everyone's known about since the 90s. But since that's not the case, I feel like they might need at least a couple more years of Carol Danvers in the MCU. Yeah. And then Kamala Khan's whole existence would make a little bit more sense. I mean, her existence is fine, but like the fact that she calls herself Miss Marvel, I think that alone needs to be like, we need more Carol first, just to make that make a little bit more sense. But who knows? Maybe the writing is there. A lot of these movies are, I mean, Endgame specifically, some of the writing in there has been super clever. So
I've just got a Wikipedia quote from somebody that says in May 2018, Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige said that there are plans to introduce Kamala Khan in the MCU after the 2019 Captain Marvel, which is now.
Yeah, we're in that time zone now. Yes, I mean, I hope this isn't a spoiler because it was in the trailers and it was at the end of her movie, but like she's on Earth now in present day. So like hopefully her existence on Earth will inspire a young Kamala Khan to be like, ooh, I like this superhero. I want to be like her someday. And then boom, Miss Marvel.
They just need to get some way to rewrite the Terrigen gas origin story for her, and then you're good. I'm sure they could do that, and also get go with the Marvel formula, which is find the Marvel formula. This is the secret to movie success, a la Marvel, as far as I have told. You get a director, usually a director that has a bit of a following, a bit of a cult following, especially. Has a few movies under their belt, but has never really had a big studio give them a huge budget. So they've done a bunch of movies that have gotten popular enough that like there's going to be an internet fan base for them, and on top of that, they have sort of a unique touch to their work. Then give them more money than they will ever see in their life, and say, we have this franchise movie that we know, like, if a monkey directed it, would make $1 bajillion. So you can kind of just make your movie and do this, and we'll like make you check off a few hooks for future movies. But besides that, just kind of do what you want to do.
Yeah.
And that seems to be their formula.
Yeah, that's pretty much how they got a lot of their big name directors these days. I mean, they weren't big names before they started. I mean, I don't know. That's not true. I think, yeah, Marvel has a habit of doing exactly what you were saying, even with actors as well. Like Chris Hemsworth was nobody before he was Thor. He was in the live action Star Trek movie as like Chris Pine's dad. And then that was it. And then they were just like, even at that point, Marvel was like, it doesn't matter who we get to be Thor. People are going to watch these movies. So let's just get the cheapest actor we can find who kind of looks like Thor. And now Chris Hemsworth is Chris Hemsworth, and he's in a million things, and everyone loves him. So.
I will say, have you seen the movie Sunshine?
Yes. Yep,
so that's an interesting movie because it was basically a science fiction film that had like a whole bunch of people whose careers were just about to explode.
Yes.
And it had like Chris Evans, and I think it even had Chris Hemsworth even? I can't remember.
I don't think it had Chris Hemsworth. I mean, it might have. It's been years, but it had Cillian Murphy in it as well, I think. Boy, it had so many people. So that movie was the movie that made me realize that Chris Evans could be like a really, really good actor. Because previously, I'd only ever seen him in the Fantastic Four movies, and then another movie called, I don't even remember what it was called. Maybe somebody knows out there. It was about him on a phone call with somebody who's being held hostage, and it was like him. They accidentally dialed him, and he was like trying to hang on just on the maybe it was just called Cellular. I don't remember, but that was an okay movie. And then I watched Sunshine, and I was like, oh my god, this guy's an actor. Like, he is an actor. And nailed it.
And he's one of the he's good. The other thing that I remember, since we were on like the Captain Marvel thing, I remember that there was a short-lived campaign, and I really wish this happened, even though Brie Larson's great. She's fun. I was kind of hoping that they would get Katie Sackhoff. I was thinking more like the Captain Marvel, the Mohawk Captain Marvel, who's a little bit more like, fuck y'all.
Yeah. That's pretty good. Yeah, I don't know. The Captain Marvel, again, I don't want to spoil anything. Captain Marvel has some great moments in Endgame. Everybody does. I mean, of course they do. All the main players have like these incredible moments, and she is no exception. So...
All right, I think I'm hogging the time. This is for the audience.
Yeah.
So I have some questions. By the way, I know that some of these things are like me. You're going to be like, pass. Because some of these are from when we were just kind of warming up the audience. They were probably questions for me, but we could just fast forward them a bit. But elections are today. In fact, they're finishing right now. And according to the polls, fascist alt-right parties is going to get almost 1/3 of parliament. Thoughts on the rise of the right in the European Union? Oh boy, scared. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, ditto. Oh boy.
When I saw that Carl Benjamin is running for the European Parliament, and like, Oh man, I feel bad because like the journalist who had to like go watch through all of his YouTube videos so that we can write articles about him. Like, oh no, that's bad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've not been following. I'm barely able to follow what's going on in the U.S. right now, so I don't have too much knowledge about elsewhere. But
plus, you've got comic books. Like comic books are like a news in and of themselves.
Yeah, there's so much going on, especially right now. Oof.
The universe just keeps getting rebooted and rebooted.
That's right.
I do like maybe this is something to branch off about. Why are comic books so like it seems like they're always going through this period of like wanting to try and create points so new people can start reading them, and then quickly just not being able to hold that together for more than like a month.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons for that. Like the movies are certainly one reason why, because they want to create a starting point for new readers, because comics are complicated. They unlike a book where like, oh, you like the Harry Potter movies, start with book 1 and move forward if you want to read the books, right? Or like even a lot of anime, you'd be like, oh, I like this anime, I want to read the manga, where do I start? And you just start with like the first volume of that story. Comics are so complicated that you can be like, wow, I really liked Spider-Man Homecoming, where do I start with Spider-Man stories? And it's like, oh, I mean, maybe like Ultimate Spider-Man, but it's kind of, I don't know, you might have to like dive into what's the part that you liked? Was it Vulture? Because I could recommend Vulture storylines. It's going to be very different than the movie. And then was it like the Iron Man and Peter relation? Because those would be different stories that we could. So like,
do you like Iron Man? Here's one where his entire body is a brain and he's blue.
I was just telling my friend about that yesterday, and I was like, yeah, probably avoid that one because that's a weird Iron Man story. That was Ultimate Iron Man, yeah, and like,
yeah,
boy, that was a nightmare. But yeah, so comics always want to create those points of interest for new readers, but it's so complicated because you also need to keep the current readers that you have by not changing up too much of the continuity. So I don't know, it's a mess. I prefer standalone stories. It's a lot easier to recommend stuff, like people who have seen Infinity War and they're like, where do I want to start there? I'm like, well, you can try to read the Infinity Gauntlet storyline. It's going to be very different. It's going to be completely different characters, completely different kind of outcome. The Infinity Gauntlet storyline comic starts with Thanos snapping, so we build off of that from there. So but I don't know, and then of course there's just I don't know, man. People are so touchy about not changing too much about the past. I don't care. I care this is like very heretical to a lot of comic book fans, but I do not care very much about continuity or canon or anything. I just want a good story. And if the good story comes at the cost of like making a plot hole or making, some element of the canon obsolete or whatever, I don't care. Just give me a good story, please. That's all I care about. There's so much continuity and so much canon that it makes it so hard for new readers, and it's frustrating to me because I want more people to be reading comics. And I don't know.
There's a lot. Yeah, like trade paperbacks are always the good way to go, right?
Yeah, I mean, as long as they're standalone stories, because you can, I don't know, it's complicated. There are a lot of characters like that. I mean, introducing new characters. We were just talking about Kamala Khan. Like her she's so new that you could actually just pick up, volume 1 of her story and get started. And it's just, there's not many years left where I can say that, because then she's going to have all sorts of different spin-off things, and her history and her canon's going to be all confusing with. It only takes a handful of years and then suddenly everybody's confused.
Yeah, that's the weird thing about comics, is that like all the characters in it have been going for still like 50 plus years, and you're just like, they don't very often like, all right, we're going to retire this old superhero and make a new one. Like new superheroes aren't that common in a weird way.
No, I mean, they try to be, But again, there's a lot of fan backlash of like, I like this thing. Trying to retire Captain America is not going to go over well in the comics. He's always going to come back in some capacity.
Mm-hmm.
But
all right. Do you know what's happening in Hungary today? I do not. Sorry, Gad. Yeah, I'm not. Will you do a video about the Battle of Blair Mountain? I don't know. Pitch it to me.
Tell me more.
Thoughts about the Mueller report finally getting released? All right. Do you know much about this?
Me, not particular. I know like some of like the highlights that everybody's been reporting on, but yeah, not too much. I've not like read it or anything.
Yeah, me neither. I'm not a journalist, but one of the things I think that would be to say is it shows that while that there's a lot of cover up and like a lot of like just like obvious attempts to obstruct justice and just showing how insecure the Trump presidency is, and also a lot of signs that basically since his election he has been systematically firing anybody who talks back to him, to the point where now he's surrounded by yes men, which is a scary autocratic thing to do.
Yeah, not a good sign.
All right, I'm going to sidestep some questions because when I got Nerdsync here, we should talk about comic books and society. And the Mueller report would be less useful. Except for this one. You don't do much more than history. Have you considered, or you're doing so much more than history, have you considered changing the name to Just Step Back? Funny you should say that. That was the original name of the channel, and then everyone started adding history at the end, so I just had to add it.
It's good. It's good SEO. Like I always complain about Nerdsync not being like, if I had worked in the word comics in there in some capacity or superheroes or something, but I don't know. I guess in hindsight, I guess I kind of like it because it allows me to also talk about things like Scooby-Doo and DuckTales without having to focus too much on comics and superheroes.
Do you have a Scooby-Doo video?
I have several Scooby-Doo videos, and I've got a couple more in the works as well.
One of the things I think I was really amused by is I found out that, and this will not surprise anybody, that Seth MacFarlane spent a lot of time at Hanna-Barbera as an animator.
Wait, I think I knew that. Did he work on Johnny Bravo, right?
Maybe. I know that he did spend some time in the Scooby-Doo area, and it's like, oh. Like,
that's funny.
The thing about Seth MacFarlane is like everything he touches, you can like 100% tell that it's him because he draws so much on his personal experiences.
Yeah.
he's got a style to everything he does.
Mm-hmm. He sure does. I know I saw you were tweeting about the Orville earlier today. Is that in threat to be canceled?
Kind of. It's like it's in one of those situations where it's like it's in a place where it would be fine if it wasn't like a high budget science fiction show and on Fox.
Yeah, that'll do it.
But also I know that Seth MacFarlane has a really close relationship with Fox, and that they'll like put anything he puts out for 5 seasons at least. So
that's true. At least. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause Fox cancels everything except for like the stuff made by like the 4 people they like.
Yeah.
And he's on there.
That's good. I do like that show. It's very fun.
It is. It suffered from the fact that they marketed it very poorly at the beginning, and they didn't really show what it really is.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be just like a Seth MacFarlane. It was going to be like Family Guy in space. That's what I thought it was going to be like, but it is not.
It's like the spiritual rebirth of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
It really is.
But then it also has very Seth MacFarlane things. Like, you can always tell Seth MacFarlane's in a thing because of the music. Typically, his voice is something in there.
Yep.
And on top of that, usually lots of references to big band and 1970s and 80s Hanna-Barbera cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
And then and also edgy atheist stuff. And more than a little bit of just Gen X nostalgia. That's basically that's the MacFarlane treatment.
That's him. You're not wrong.
I like everything he does that's not Family Guy and like the Family Guy family of shows.
Yeah. Yeah, I really do think that he's talented. I think that it's a shame that his name is almost synonymous with Family Guy, because Family Guy's fine. I think it's certainly lost a lot of its. I don't want to say charm. It never really had charm, but I don't know. Uh, I wish there was something else people knew him from, because I do think that he's very talented in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, and you can tell like when he did the Orville, I think it's his like first like earnest thing that he's done.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, he produced the reboot of Cosmos.
That's right. Yeah.
He really likes science.
He really does.
All right, we can go. First question here is Travis the Cancer Pill said, "Did you see Endgame?" You have 3 times, and I have seen it 0 times, so we're at a net +3.
Yeah, it's very good. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's nice. I will tell you, as I've cried every single time I've watched it. I cried. There are about 3 or 4 moments. No, there's about 4 or 5 moments where that will get me on any given watch. It's like sometimes I don't cry all the time for one moment. Sometimes I cry there's one moment I've cried every single time, but there's at least like 3 or 4 others that I'm just like, oh, is it gonna get me this time? Yep.
All right, one question about that though. I haven't seen Captain Marvel, and I might see Avengers tomorrow. But is it okay? Have we gotten that far in the comic book movies where it's like, oh, if you haven't seen this, then you really have to see it before you see this?
I think all you really need to know, and I'll try to avoid spoilers for both Endgame and Captain Marvel in case people still haven't seen Captain Marvel and want to see it. But basically all you need to know, and this is stuff you can probably piece together by watching some of the trailers for Endgame, but number 1, Carol Danvers is incredibly powerful, probably the most powerful being in the MCU. All right. I think, yeah, whatever. I don't want to analyze it, but yes, super powerful. Number 2, she has been gone for a very, very long time and just now came back to Earth because Fury called her at the end of Infinity War. So by the time Endgame starts, she is already on Earth with the Avengers.
Yeah, wasn't she at the end of Civil War briefly?
She was at the end of it. No, wait.
Like there's like a period at the end of a movie where they were like, the Avengers are done, but now here are these new ones.
Oh yeah. No, I don't remember. I don't think so. But yeah, so she comes in. She's already with the Avengers by the time Endgame starts. And then, and she also, Nick Fury is like her best friend. So when he got snapped away at the end of Infinity War, she finds out about it and is really sad about it. So those are basically the only points you really need to know for Endgame. She's very powerful. She's already on Earth with the Avengers by the time the movie starts, and she misses Nick Fury.
It would have been very useful to have her in that one subplot with that moment where they're trying to tear off his glove. She would have been pretty useful at that point.
Yeah. Well, would she have been? Because Doctor Strange says that there's only one way they could have won, and so far, and he said at the end of Infinity War, there was no other way. So maybe she shouldn't have been there, and this is good. This
is good, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard of Alternate History PT? Nope. Have you ever played any of the Total War franchise?
Is that a game? I don't play games.
It's a military strategy game where you basically have like the risk board when you're like conquering the map. Not like Risk especially, but like the whole like you can move across the map and conquer territories. But then when you have battles, it then goes into a real-time strategy game where you fight out the battle. And they've done a bunch of different periods of the past, and most recently they're on a kick where they're doing the Warhammer fantasy universe.
Mm-hmm.
I have played it a little bit when I was a teenager, when Shogun Total War, which I think is the first one, came out. And I never played... the thing is, I never played the real-time strategy game. I would just auto You can have like a thing to like just fast resolve it.
Yeah.
Which then I was like, hey, wait, Paradox is making games that are like that but better. So I just went to that. All right. Spanish elections question. You have to give it to me another time. Maybe on my Mondays or my Monday stream or my Tuesday stream, whichever one. I do a lot of them. All right, here's a good one. Okay, Argos Panoptes. Did the trend towards more representation in comic books start with the new Miss Marvel 2011 or Mrs. Marvel 2011 selling well?
I don't think that's what started it. It might have been what pushed it forward a little bit more. So this is like years ago. There was like a big story about how one of the heads at Marvel Comics talked about, like, made an offhand comment about how there were a couple stories with quote unquote diverse characters that weren't selling very well. This would have been after Miss Marvel. And so basically it was, I can't remember the exact quote. It was either taken out of context or fully within context, and he was just being stupid. But he said something along the lines of, this is proof that diverse characters don't sell very well. But I don't know. That's so everyone jumped on that and tried to make videos about, like, is he right? Is he wrong? He's obviously wrong. Comics just don't sell well because that's the nature of comics. Like the most popular comic of like, you'll be lucky if you sell over 100,000 copies of a comic book. Like, it doesn't matter who it is. So, but yeah, I don't know. I think I do think Miss Marvel did sell very, very well. And I think that was probably a sign that people were looking for those kinds of stories. And Marvel certainly was like, well, you know, we have enough straight cis white dudes, so we can always go back to those, but we can, let's try introducing some more stuff. I don't know the exact details about what was going on through Marvel's production during that time, but it certainly sounds like something that would spark some wheels turning, like, oh, hey, maybe people like these stories.
If they're going to do like a big reset with the Endgame, I want them to go down the path of like all of the things that made people mad. Like, let's do America Chavez as the new Captain America. Let's do, I don't remember what the lady is who's the Thor, the after Thor.
Yeah, well, she's just called Thor. That's what people were upset about the most, is like, why not just like Miss Thor or Thor Woman or give her own title? And they're like, no, Thor is Thor. She is Thor.
Yeah. Get that Korean Hulk. Just all of them. Yeah. Do them all. How bleeding edge do you keep on your comic reading? Like, do you have a pull list?
I do not. I've been pretty open about this because people always ask me. I don't really read a lot of modern comics, and it's not because I don't like them or think that they're not worthy of reading. I think people always think that of, like, when I say I don't read modern comics, I think a lot of people's response is like, yeah, they suck, right? It's too much diversity. And I'm like, that's not the reason I don't read it. I don't read them because it's too much to keep up with, and I have so many stories from the past that I want to talk about because they're very interesting in the context and the eras in which they were told. And I think that's more fun for me to talk about, to be like, you know, Skrulls introduced for, you know, Red Scare reasons, or all these Superman comics about atomic bombs. Like, isn't that interesting? So I like to go deep into the past and pick stories from there. But there are modern, like I said, Kamala Khan is one of my favorite modern comic books. And so I'll try to keep up with a few of them, but I do not have the attention to keep up with everything that's going on in comics right now. I don't know the people who can, I salute you, but I certainly cannot.
Mm-hmm. Especially because, like, we've kind of been very Marvel heavy, but then you don't play favorites. You like the Justice League and everything.
I do. I love Aquaman. Aquaman's my favorite superhero. So I love him. I love even a lot of Batman stories are really good. There's been a lot of super fun stuff. I don't know, Green Lantern sometimes, depending on which Green Lantern. Yeah, I love them all. I just love superheroes. Everybody, that's me.
I tweeted a picture of Aquaman Aquaman's gone through a lot of rebranding, and so I like tweeted a picture that was like the picture of Jason Momoa right after he gets the thing and he's all covered in the scales, and then had it to like a what's it called? What was that show called? Super Friends. Super Friends picture of Aquaman like dancing with a bunch of fish.
Heck yeah. Oh, when in the Aquaman movie, when he dons that costume for the first time, I was like, yes, that looks so good. I can't believe they made the classic Aquaman costume look so good in real life.
We probably should, though, make an official apology and sincere condolences for whoever in that movie was in charge of animating Willem Dafoe's face.
Yeah. I want to salute the team of people who had to animate everybody's hair, including Jason Momoa's beard, every time he was in water. Oh.
Yeah, I knew that they must have like worked on that one for years, being like, if we can't make this work, we're not going to be able to do Aquaman.
Yeah, I know some people hate a lot of the underwater stuff because it feels like very CGI heavy. Yeah, I get that, but at the same time, it's very fun, and I like how colorful that movie is. It's very colorful compared to the rest of the DC movies.
Yeah, I mean, the last battle is basically a rave.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Where you have the shrimp mechs and a giant Julie Andrews bursting out of lava. And
I mean, what more could you want in a movie but a giant lava-covered Julie Andrews?
Oh man, that is just such a movie. All right, why are characters trying to address systematic problems in society, capitalism, pollution, etc., but are always the villains while the heroes usually defend the status quo?
So, yeah, this is actually a really, really good point. That happens. So superheroes never used to be, this is like a teaser for my next video. Superheroes used to be people who would go and fix problems. Superman was created as a champion of the oppressed. Some of his very first stories were about him going and fixing things, going and solving corrupt politicians, getting better working conditions for coal miners. Like that was stuff that Superman did at the start. But then a couple things happened that made it so heroes had to change to not change too much to preserve the status quo. The first thing is the Comics Code Authority, which happened with kind of within the 40s, 50s era. And it was basically don't challenge, like there was like a rule about like not challenging the authority too much in there. Like you can't have cops be bad guys. You can't have, everyone has to follow the law all the time. And like, so that already limits the amount of change that superheroes can do in these comics. But also the war happened, and I feel like there was so much going on for like people just wanted, I think at that time people didn't really, there was so much change. They're just like, I just want someone to keep things the way that they are, make other people change. I don't want to change, sort of a thing. So superheroes used to be the kind of people that would change, and now they're kind of people who are like, the world is fine. We're just going to make it so nobody does anything too out there. Even in Aquaman, we were just talking. In Aquaman, one of the things that bothers me is that Orm, the villain of the movie, is wanting to wage war against the surface world because of all the pollution that they're throwing into the ocean. It's like killing all the sea life and the entire planet itself. And that is never addressed by Aquaman throughout the rest of the movie. Like you'd think at the end, they're just like, all right, so now you're the king. We still have the same problem about the surface world. The surface world hasn't changed. All that's changed is the ocean, and like you're the leader of it now, but like it's still an issue, and they just never bring it up. So yeah, I don't know. At that point, it gets a little too complicated. But I don't know. There's just something so fun about the idea that two kids who created Superman like their first thought when creating a superhero who could do almost anything they could think of was not to battle intergalactic space beings. That came later. All he did was jump around town, stopping, domestic abuse and corrupt politicians and all sorts of fun stuff. Helping out people who are wrongly convicted of crimes. I love that version of Superman.
Mm-hmm. You could argue that like Daredevil's a bit like that.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, he's very much uses both sides of his identity to do good, which I like a lot. I mean, even Superman, you could say like he's a reporter. He tries to, but I don't know. At the end of the day, they're not trying to fix too much. There's been a lot of critiques, even like way back decades ago. People were already writing essays about like, if Superman can do all this, why isn't he like trying to save the world and from not just threats of like aliens and monsters, but why not just try to fix societal problems? And he used to, but they stopped writing him that way.
Yeah. I've got one here that I was like, oh man, I really wish this had been made. So there's so do you know China Meeville?
China Meeville? I don't know.
She's like an author, but one of the things is she pitched a 6-issue comic introducing a new superhero that I think might be the best superhero that would have fit this kind of model right away.
Okay, let me have it.
All right. Economic crisis hits Flint, Michigan, or Flinton, Michigan. Sorry, the fictional city of Flinton, Michigan.
Of course.
And the Stark Industries factory there, due to cutting out the budget, has to shut down, and it leaves a whole bunch of unionized factory workers out of work. The union, trying to get revenge against, or trying to get justice for the workers of this town who are going to go into depression, take some of the stuff, the Iron Man parts and some of the leftovers from the factory, and the union puts together this sort of like discount Iron Man costume, and it's called and the hero's name is Scrap Iron Man.
I love that. That's so good.
And it's like this like not pretty, like just like dirty like scrap metal who has like I think like a smokestack coming out of his back and everything.
Oh, that's very good.
Okay.
Very good.
Are there any interesting left-wing utopia type societies in comics like the Federation of Planets?
Ooh. That's a good question. I feel like there's not a lot of writers don't tackle too much on the politics of a lot of those areas. I think like a Wakanda, I don't know how Wakanda actually operates in the comics very
it's an absolute monarchy that chooses its leader through single combat sometimes, so who knows?
Yeah. It's got a lot of rules. And then, but of course, like even in the MCU, they're just like, we're going to change up a lot of these rules because they are old and they are not serving us very well. So maybe when Black Panther 2 rolls around, we can get some like, it's going to be the Star Wars prequels again, where it's just politics. Which actually, you know what? I kind of wouldn't mind that in the MCU. Like they just had these big Thanos ending, like universe ending threat for 2 movies in a row. I'm all set for some like fictional politics. Lay it on me.
Like the West Wing Wakanda version.
Ooh, I'm on board for that.
All right. What about like that kind of sci-fi society that John C. Reilly is part of in Guardians of the Galaxy?
Oh yeah. The Nova Corps.
Yeah. What is that?
It's kind of like just this. I mean, the Novas are just like a military force. And they're what is that planet? I forget. I haven't seen Guardians in a while. But I don't know. They're just like a space military force. It's basically like a Star Force sort of a thing. Like from you haven't seen Captain Marvel. Sorry.
Star Force.
Oh, I guess so the Kree, right? The Kree for Captain Marvel, they are a very they're very coded as I've talked about this in my video about Skrulls, but they're very coded as like this hyperbolic communist society where like even the supreme intelligence that rules over everybody is called like the collective, and it's made up of the collective minds and identities of everybody in that society, which is kind of interesting. But they're still painted as the villains. So,
someone pointed out in the chat, but I think this will be interesting for the Marvel politics movie. Obviously, we're gonna have to introduce Latveria soon.
Of course, I'm excited for that.
And we'll see. Oh man, who do you cast as MCU's Doctor Doom, though?
I've had many conversations about this, and I always land on several different people, but hear me out. I'm gonna say Kevin James, Paul Blart, Dr. Doom. Oh, no, boy. I have no idea. I have no idea. I want them to do somebody completely out of left field who we like would never expect to be a Dr. Doom. I do think Dr. Doom should be like the next big threat in the MCU, though. Like just work in politics from all sorts of different angles until you don't really know what he's up to.
Yeah, that Hannibal guy would probably be decent at it. He's got the creepy eyes for it.
Which guy?
The guy who he played Hannibal on a TV show for a while, and then he was the guy who designed the Death Star in freaking.
Oh, but he was already the villain in Doctor Strange.
Oh right. Well then. They're running out of Hollywood. They're running out of Hollywood.
He would have been great. I agree. Oh, what a good choice. Oh wow.
All right. This question is: what is the origin of toxic fandom?
The origin of toxic
with a note that this is for Scott only, as he is the true fan.
No. Well, first of all, don't say true fan, because I think that's an origin of toxic fandom right there. I think the origin of toxic fandom comes from people wanting a thing to make them special, I guess. Like, I don't know. That seems to be a common thing where it's like, I want something that's unique to me. I want something that I identify with. It's a cultivated identity, if you want to call it that, for sure.
Oh, Peter's ears are ringing.
But I think it's just a lot of it is, people wanting an identity. And so that they're just like, this is me, this is who I am, this is the stuff that I like. And then if people come in and they're like, hey, me too, then the correct response is to say, welcome, friend. Let's enjoy this thing together. But where toxic fandom comes in is when people feel threatened by that. And they're like, oh no, this thing that makes me feel unique is no longer a thing that makes me feel unique. I must protect that feeling at all costs. And so then you'll get people who will be like, oh yeah, you like this? Well, what happened in this episode? Remember this issue of this comic? What happened there? Who said this line? And you start testing people to be like, are you a true fan like me? Do you have all the same knowledge and experiences and history that I have with this thing? And the answer is, of course not. Everyone comes on to these fandoms at different times, at different places of their life, and they like different things. Like, you can quiz me about comic book knowledge and I'm going to fail probably everything, because I don't retain trivia as much as I retain ideas about comics and superheroes as a concept. And like, you could just be like, what's this character's name? And be like, I don't know. That's what Google is for. But like, but I love discussing comics and superheroes as a big grand idea. So I don't know. I think the toxic fandom just comes from people feeling very threatened. And it's like, this thing is mine. But it's not. It belongs to everybody. Just calm down.
Might I propose something to that? Was there a time when, there was. I remembered this. There was a time where to be into this kind of stuff was to have this sort of feeling of like it's us against the world. Like the world's rejected us. We're these like, we like this stuff, and the rest of the world is, they like their sports and their cars and their But now it's like cool, and now the guys who like the sports and all of those girls that I don't know what factors in their head are now getting into this stuff because it's cool, and they're realizing how cool this stuff was, and they're like, no, this is mine. I built my identity around like feeling like this, like cloistered.
Yeah, almost like I've earned this identity and you haven't, like, yeah, I get that for sure. I mean, I just tweeted something a couple weeks ago about how there was a friend of mine talking about D&D and like referencing different monsters and different, elements of that whole thing. And I was just like, I had to Google stuff because I didn't want to not know the correct D&D terms because I didn't want to be called a nerd for not knowing it. And so like, there's been like a big twist, a big shift in, and like what kinds of things are cool now, quote unquote. But like, again, for me, when people think, oh, these Marvel movies or just superheroes in general, comics as an art form, people are getting more and more into that. To me, I'm just like, yay. I want more of that. Number one, because hey, it's job security for me. But number two, it's because I grew up not having a lot of friends to talk about this stuff with. So the fact that there's a growing audience for comics and superheroes to talk about this stuff with, and to have like real, genuine, deep conversations about these fictional characters who have impacted so many people's lives. I love it. And like anyone who tries to be like a gatekeeper and keep people out and say like, no, you have to prove yourself worthy, as if liking this thing is akin to holding Thor's hammer. It's like, get out of here. Just let people like the things that they like.
Yeah.
You nerds.
It's like to the point where like, we have to really appreciate how far it's come. Like if somebody came back to you 15 years ago and said, or 15 years, okay, let's go like 12 years ago and said, okay, there's going to be an Ant-Man movie that's going to have cost hundreds of millions of dollars and it's going to do well.
Mm-hmm. That's
just a thing that's going to exist.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, what?
I'm like, I don't know what that means. when Iron Man was first coming out, I was like, who's Iron Man? Yeah. Like, because again, like at that point, I was not super into actually. Like, that's another thing too. Is growing up, I didn't have a lot of access to actual comics because I was a kid. And also, there wasn't a lot of digital streaming of comic books yet. That's a relatively new thing. But like, yeah, I don't know. Hearing that even the first Avengers movie would be a thing that would happen, like seeing all these superheroes crossing over in a shared universe. It's like, what? That doesn't even make sense. How does that make sense? What are you talking about?
I remember when it was first coming out, because when Marvel was doing this stuff, because it was like, oh, like, yeah, like this is going to do well because it's like because Marvel has none of its good franchises. They're just going to take all of their like B-list heroes and put them in movies. And like the Avengers, like no one gives a shit about the Avengers. It was all about X-Men and
Spider-Man.
And it's like, yeah, you can't, like, that's all, like, that's what they are. And so it's like this, like, I'd like to see this. And now everyone's like, Iron Man's like the biggest superhero in the thing, which is like, he was never that big.
No, I mean, Marvel won't admit it. I think Kevin Feige has even gone on record and he's just like, we at Marvel don't really have B or C list characters. We think all of our characters are A list characters, but it's like, in reality, nobody cared about Iron Man. Very few people cared about Captain America. Every time I stop to think about the fact that his name is Captain America, like that's so silly sounding. But for some reason, when you put Chris Evans in a spangly uniform, suddenly it's so cool to see. And he's such a pure heart of a character. And I love him. And yeah, just seeing how far the MCU has come is insane to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I want to see, my big thing is I want to see the Toad solo film.
Of course.
Who's, I think, my favorite superhero. or villain, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
Because he eats garbage and dresses like a medieval peasant while getting slime on things. Which
I love that.
Toad represents like how X-Men's got like they didn't do very much of this in the movies, but like how there's like the branch of X-Men that are like the gross X-Men who are like actual like mutants.
Mm-hmm.
And they never really went too far on that. And I would have loved to see like the Morlocks as like a movie.
Oh yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, there's so much of the X-Men that they've been trying to do like the big X-Men arcs over the past couple years, things like Days of Future Past and Apocalypse, and now they're doing Dark Phoenix again. And if and when they eventually pop up in the MCU, I would like for them to just try and not do a world-ending threat with the X-Men, but just to do what they always used to do with the X-Men, which is just kind of make it a really personal, really emotional movie about acceptance and trying to find a place in society. There hasn't really been a good X-Men movie about that just yet. I think the first X-Men movie was the closest they ever got to that. Maybe Days of Future Past in a couple areas, but oh yeah, that's about it. I would love if there was just like no world-ending threat, just the X-Men trying to survive in a society that hates them.
Yeah, I think a society is ready because it wasn't ready when they first adapted it, but adapting God Loves Man Kills into into something. I feel like in the moment we're in right now, a God Loves Man Kills movie would be so good. Which, by the way, for anyone out there, it's basically a story about a fundamentalist Jerry Falwell-esque preacher who starts riling up hatred against mutants.
Yeah,
and it ends with the entire congregation seeing seeing Nightcrawler, and like Falwell being like, look at this like horrible creature, and like look what this like abomination against nature, and like everyone the congregation just kind of is like, ugh, and they kind of just like back away from Falwell because they just exposed for like the hate it was. It's a beautiful graphic novel that I would love to see. All right, we did get a proposal for a Nicolas Cage Doctor Doom.
I am. Yes.
Cage does need to return, and Doom.
I love that so much. That is absolutely out of left field. Nobody would know what because my idea for introducing Doctor Doom is you just introduce a character and you don't tell anyone he's Doctor Doom yet until a couple movies in. Like he's like maybe the post-credit stinger for all the other MCU movies, and he's like building this plan. You're like, who is this guy? Who are they? What are they doing? And it's just Nicolas Cage just messing around at the end of every movie until you find out, actually, Doctor Doom. That was my Nicolas Cage impression. You're welcome. But yeah, I would love that.
Either Doctor Doom or that other Marvel villain who I know they'll never make into a thing because I don't know. They're going more and more weird every time. That guy who's like just a head with arms sticking out the side and legs coming down.
MODOK. I love MODOK.
I would love to see if they can like make the serious version of him.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite villains from the MCU was Zola, and they first had him as a human, and I was like, okay, that's fine. And then they like had him as like evil computer screens, and I was like, ooh, I love this. So I would love MODOK. MODOK would be a fun like Guardians 3 villain. Oh,
sure. Nicolas Cage's Mysterio. Who they get to play Mysterio? It's someone high profile, isn't it?
Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah.
Mysterio's my favorite. Mysterio is my favorite. I can't. All right. I said a thing once to somebody, and they said it was spoilers for the Spider-Man movie, so I guess I can't say it. But I love Mysterio. I haven't seen the new Spider-Man movie. I don't know if it's spoilers, but I don't know.
I always like the Scorpion, but he's kind of just like a side character.
Yeah, I mean he was teased in in Homecoming. Yeah.
All right. What other comics does Scott read from Superheroes Comics? Any recommendations?
So again, I don't follow a lot of new stuff. But I love superheroes. I love let's see, I'm trying to think of some like good stories I read a lot of single issues for a lot of research, so like trade paperbacks are hard. I love Jimmy Olsen comics. If you go back and read like Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, they are like the wackiest stories you can imagine. They're just fun and silly, and they don't make a lot of sense. And I've heard that actually Jimmy Olsen is or already has been rebooted. Like that series has been renewed again in the current run of like DC Comics. So that would be a fun one to pick up. Highly recommend Kamala Khan. I think we've talked about her a lot. Start from volume 1, move forward. It's great. Moon Knight is another one of my favorite characters. I love Warren Ellis's run on Moon Knight. It's very good. There was also a 2000, oh boy, it was, I think maybe like a 2003 run on Moon Knight. I can't remember who did it. It's a very short run, a very standalone story. It's very sad, very good. Would check it out. If you don't know who Moon Knight is, he's basically like kind of akin to Marvel's Batman. I know people hate making that comparison because he is like a completely standalone character in his own rights, but he's great and I like him. I don't know. That's a couple. That's a handful of fun things here and there to get people started for sure.
I could recommend stuff, but it's going to be like the most like banal list of things because like I would recommend like Watchmen because it's like the top 100 greatest novels of all time. I would recommend like God Loves Man Kills, which I think is the best X-Men.
Yeah.
All-Star Superman, which is where Grant Morrison tries to actually figure out how to end the Superman series.
Yeah.
The Dark Knight, except Frank Miller sucks. The Dark Returns.
Yeah. I'm not a huge fan of Dark Knight Returns, I'll be honest. I don't know. I know people love it, but I just don't know why. I don't know.
It's just cool. I think it's just it was cool as a one thing.
Sure.
What else is good? I think that with this particular audience, Superman Red Sun, which was like my first full arc I've ever read.
It's a good one.
Which is one where Superman lands 12 hours later than he was supposed to. And so instead of crash landing in the United States, he crash lands in a collective farm in Ukraine and becomes a hero of the Soviet Union.
Yeah, that's good. I don't know. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of these. Like if you've never gotten into comics at all, there's a lot of super classics that I could recommend. Like if you love Batman stuff, Killing Joke is like a classic one that people love. I think it's fine. I think it has a lot of issues. I mean, it's literally one issue, but like, you know what I mean? It has a lot of problems that don't reflect well in a modern context. But it's a fine story. The Court of Owls storyline from New 52 is really good as well. If you like Batman, I don't know. There's a lot of good classics out there if you're like just starting to get into comics. Kraven's Last Hunt is one of my favorite Spider-Man stories, and I'm dying for it to be turned into a movie, but I don't think it ever will because it's just not flashy enough for like a big budget superhero movie. Like Kraven doesn't have any like, you know, he's not like Vulture or Green Goblin or Doc Ock. He doesn't have this like cool gear that's all around him or anything. He's just like a hunter, and he just sets booby traps to capture Spider-Man, and then he becomes Spider-Man, and then story. But it's really good, and it has a lot to say about like identity, and it ends on a very sad, depressing note. It's very powerful. So I don't know. I recommend that story because it will never be made into a movie.
Speaking of excellent comics that would never be made into movies, how about the Archie Punisher crossover?
Yes, the one that doesn't that imply at the end that Jughead might be a mutant?
I think so. Beautiful stuff. And then if you want to get out of superhero comics, another one, it's a Pulitzer Prize winning thing too, and that is everyone should read Mouse at least once.
That's a good one.
Which is a non-fiction comic about basically a man and his relationship with his father, who's a Holocaust survivor, trying to, at the same time, try to get their relationship together while he's like kind of in his last years, but at the same time tell the story of his father surviving the Holocaust. It's like one of the most intense comics ever, and it's also very uniquely drawn because the author Art Spiegelman has a perception disorder where he actually sees the world in 2 dimensions. Like he can't see depth. And so the comic comes out really interesting. It's
I actually did not know that. That's fun. I'll have to go back and read it with that in mind. That's fun.
Yeah, it's Mouse is one of those ones that you're gonna get. Like, these are, by the way, like a lot of the ones I said are like, if you ever take like a graphic novel class in university, these are the ones you're gonna cover.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, my brother took a comic book class in college, and I was always very jealous of that. I
got to take it too. That's how I recommended all of these.
Yeah. Did you have to read Understanding Comics?
No. We had a project in the class to design our own superhero. Like, it was like that. Ooh. It was very bird course.
That's cool. I like that. I mean, yeah, if you just are interested in the comic book art form in general, there is a comic about comics called Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud, and it's very, very good and informative and very seminal work on how comics work as an art form and what makes certain elements of it unique to that art form as opposed to movies or books or anything like that, and also just how certain elements function, like adding a lot of detail to a panel makes people slow down because they have to visually process things. You can control the pace in that way, or having a panel that is like physically long can make it so that it feels temporally long. It feels like a lot is happening over the space of one panel. So it's, again, like how to control the pace in a comic, and it's very cool. And hopefully you'll walk away from it with an appreciation for comics as an art form. And it is a comic book itself. So it's like reading a comic about comics. It's good stuff.
That would actually be like the visual language of comics. That would be a great Nerdsync type video to do.
There's so much that it's one of those things where I'm slowly starting to talk about it, but I need to I need to break it up into like studies. My buddy Hass has a whole channel called Strip Panel Naked, which is all about how the comic book art form works, and he's great, and he's done some videos for me in the past, and yeah, highly recommend it. I have a Steve Ditko video that I'm working on still. I've been working on it since last year, which talks about how he used the comic book art form, how he shaped panels, how he controlled pacing, all that good stuff.
Is it going to wrap up with like the why Steve Ditko is evil?
Yeah, well, that's going to be... So I've decided to split it up into 2 parts. One's going to be focusing on his art, and the other's going to be focusing on his writing, because his writing is very Ayn Rand objectivist. Everything is, black and white, and only
Hans art, then why he's bad.
That's right. That's exactly right. Hans art. Maybe avoid the things that he wrote.
The other one, my like hope for the nerds, my Nerdsync hope, even though I feel like it would just be complete Tristan service, is I want just a complete rundown of how deep the profound weirdness of Alan Moore the person is. Oh, that's another one to recommend is freaking V for Vendetta. That's a solid read. But yeah, just Alan Moore is one of the weirdest humans.
He is. So like this will probably pop up in my video about Steve Ditko's writing, but Alan Moore was very much against a lot of like Watchmen is just Rorschach specifically is a parody of Steve Ditko. Rorschach is Alan Moore taking Steve Ditko's The Question or Mr. A, which are 2 like very objectivist characters that he created, and Alan Moore was like, here's Rorschach, here's how he talks, very like blah, 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 not even full sentences, just fragments. And then it's basically him saying, this is how you sound, Steve. Do you see how dumb you sound, Steve? This is stupid. And then unironically, people on the internet were like, oh my God, Rorschach is so me, right? And it's like, oh, that wasn't the point.
Yeah. But just keep in mind, like just a teaser for everybody. Alan Moore self-describes himself as a warlock. He has said in interviews that sometimes he just forgets to leave the house for over a month.
That won't happen.
He's just an extremely strange human.
Yes.
But his comics are amazing and his politics are top notch, even if he thinks he's a warlock.
Yeah.
But he's written some of the best comics in history, and so
he's an interesting fellow for sure.
Yeah, and I would just want to see just nonstop gawking at just how profound, how deep it goes. Okay, so all right, we did this one. Is there a superhero that uses their power to empower communities, or are they all individual saviors and vanguards?
I don't know. That uses their power to... That's a tricky one. This is something that you remember when we first met and Ollie was there and he was talking about how he had that idea for a video about why people don't need superheroes, but rather they need exactly this, like something that empowers the community of people around them. Yeah, that's tricky.
Yeah, because like you notice that like, there's very few like superheroes that are like, what if there was just a superhero who could heal?
Yeah,
just heal people, like John Coffey. What if they added John Coffey to the MCU?
That'd be good. Oh, I don't know. That's a tricky one. I don't know. I'm sure there are characters who like are tech based who have like used a lot of their, like, you know, you could argue that Bruce Wayne does a lot for Gotham with his money, not nearly enough as he should, but like, you know, especially his parents have done a lot to set up, you know, clinics around Gotham. But
I feel like we do not have enough time in the world to talk about whether or not Bruce Wayne is good or bad as like his like personal politics.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just I'd certainly have feelings about Bruce Wayne. Although I will say I don't think most people would consider having lots of money to be a superpower in the same way that like having heat vision would be. But I don't know. It's certainly power.
Night Nurse. There you go.
There you go.
Night Nurse rules.
Perfect.
Potential future First Lady Night Nurse.
Love it. I'm on board.
Do you know that story or no?
No, I don't.
So Rosario Dawson is dating Cory Booker.
That's right.
And in the probably like 7 or 8 elections from now, because Cory Booker's one of those people who's been like getting ready to run for president since he was like 4.
Yeah.
He's not going to win this time. His numbers are nowhere near where they need to be, but he's young. He could try again. And I hope he doesn't, but he could. But there you go. You get jokes are better when you explain them.
No, that was no, that's funny though.
All right. We kind of talked about this about how someone pointed out that Scrap Iron Man is more likely to be a villain of an Iron Man movie than like a hero.
Oh yeah. For sure.
I did find it interesting that like because there's 2 now villains of big top tier superhero movies where basically racism in America against black people caused the villain to be made. You had Killmonger.
That's true.
And also Black Manta. Both of them have their origin stories based in like racism.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I did love Killmonger as a villain. I thought he was one of the stronger MCU villains that we've seen in a while. Good stuff.
Unfortunately named, but yeah.
Yeah.
Would you watch a movie that is essentially Starship Troopers but set in the Star Wars universe and shows people joining the Empire military with all of the in-universe propaganda? Oh man, that would be heavy.
Absolutely, I would. Oh, I would watch that if it was like a TV show on Disney Plus.
You're gonna have to get that for your job, and I'm like,
I know.
I feel like I feel like I will actually sacrifice something of my soul to sign up for Disney Plus, and I don't know why, but that's just like this overwhelming feeling I have.
Yeah, I get you. I mean, it's the good news is since Nerdsync is now with the Super Carlin brothers, I just have them pay for everything. So like Marvel Unlimited and now DC Universe, and then eventually Disney Plus. Since being a big part of their whole channel, almost everything they do on their channel is Disney and Pixar and Marvel, so and Star Wars. So it's all Disney, and so I'm just gonna piggyback off of their account. So they don't get any money from me, Disney. I mean, you do because I still watch your movies.
Yeah,
so.
how many times did you see Endgame?
Well, okay, but also I didn't pay for a single one of those. So
I'm just
two of
thinking that
them were Super Carlin Brothers expenses. Thanks, Carlins.
the movie has been out for 72 hours, and the movie is 3.5 hours long, which means that you've spent
Yes.
let's do the math here. 9 plus, like, you spent 10.5 hours of the last 72 hours. So almost 1 out of 7 hours, 1/7 of the last 3 days you have spent watching Avengers Endgame.
That checks out. That makes sense to me. But again, I have yet to actually buy a ticket to Endgame because when I saw it today, my girlfriend bought the ticket for me. So suck on that, Disney.
I'm probably going to see it tomorrow because I found it's my day off where I don't have to go to the office, and I found that I don't have anything super pressing, which is very rare for me. So I might do it.
Yeah. Do it.
Just because, like, I feel like it's one of those things where it's like, if I don't see it in theaters, I'm going to feel like I missed something.
Mm-hmm.
Then my wife she would like half want to see it. I don't know.
I would recommend it. It's definitely there are so many big hero moments that seeing it in theaters is very fun.
Mm-hmm.
I hate seeing. I don't know if this is going to derail things too much. Do you like seeing any movie on like opening night, or have you ever done that?
Like the midnight thing, or
yes, I think nowadays it's like 6 p.m. the Thursday before.
I want to say I have, but I can't tell you off the top of my head what it would have been.
Yeah.
I'm really bad at movies.
That's fine.
I went through a phase where when I was in high school, where I was at the movie theater every Friday at the arcade,
mm-hmm.
which is like the most like, that's not a thing. Like now it's Fortnite and spreading fascist propaganda on the internet. But back then we hung out at the arcade. And I swear I must have seen movies back then, but that would have been like 2002, 2006. And I can't think of any movies that came out in that period.
Right. Makes sense.
Oh, you know what? I did. I saw The Lords of the Rings.
Ooh.
It came out on opening night. Not opening night, but like on Friday.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Yeah. I hate seeing movies opening night because the crowd is such a big part of what impacts my movie going experience. And on opening night, it never fails. It's so crowded, and I always get seated near someone who really wants to commentate the whole movie as if they're the funniest person on earth. And I'm like, you need to be quiet, please. And it's so frustrating, and it ruins a lot of how I feel about the overall experience. But I've had to go to a couple of them recently just because job things. They're like, we'll pay for the tickets, but we got to go opening night. And I'm like, oh, fine. It's worth it. I don't want to spend money.
See, my thing with movies is I'm always like, oh, I want to go see this movie. And then I'll be like, all right, well, I didn't go this weekend. Maybe I'll go next weekend. And then eventually it's like, oh, I guess it's out on DVD now. So I might as well do that. Like the last time I saw a movie in theaters when it was still in theaters was, oh boy, this is sad, was Black Panther.
Nice.
Maybe like 1 or 2 weeks before it was going to go out of theaters.
But you still got in there.
Yeah,
I'm proud of you.
It was like March or maybe even early April of 2018.
Wow.
I was like, this movie's going to be out of theaters soon, and everyone's talking about it. I should probably get around to seeing it at some point.
That's very good.
but most Marvel movies I haven't seen until after they came out on DVD. And then after a while, I was like, "Oh crap! I was going to see that movie, wasn't I?" That happened with Ant-Man and the Wasp, where it's like,
Yeah.
"Oh right, that was a movie that happened."
I
Okay.
feel like that's most people's response to Ant-Man and the Wasp is, "Oh yeah." It actually ended up being one of the most prominent movies to watch before Endgame.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So I'll probably end up. And then also it's like, well, isn't like is Captain Marvel still in theaters? Maybe. Isn't there? Is there a reboot of Hellboy that's in theaters right now too?
Oh my god, there is. That's like, yeah. I don't think I'm gonna see that one in theaters. Some of my friends say it's fine. Most of them say it's terrible, but no one is saying that it's amazing. So I'm gonna skip that.
Yeah. All right. Question from Laura was here. Hopefully she's still here. Did you guys watch Umbrella Academy? I loved it. It's on my list.
I absolutely loved it. It is one of my favorite superhero, or not. Well, I don't know if you'd call them superheroes, but it's certainly one of my favorite comic book shows ever created. The aesthetic is amazing. The acting, the way that the characters bounce off of each other, it's so good. And the storyline is very dramatic and very cinematic. And I am excited for season 2 when that drops. But yes, if you haven't seen Umbrella Academy, oh boy, you need to, because it is chef's kiss. So good.
Oh man. All right, maybe I'll set it up for like sometime after I finish watching season 2 of Star Trek Discovery.
Mm-hmm.
I do so much YouTube stuff that I don't like. I'm still like in the hustle where I have to like do a full-time job and then do another full-time job of YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
That, like all of the movie time and TV time is YouTube time.
I hear you. Yeah, I've been like watching and then rewatching a lot of my favorite YouTubers because I'm like, I don't have time for like a full movie or to start a new show, but I can watch this video for the 3rd time.
Yeah, I think I've watched like some of the ones H Bomber Guy. I will like revisit H Bomber Guy videos just to like get through things. I don't know why that.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. He and a bunch of other people, I've been rewatching a lot of their stuff just to get inspiration to be like, oh, I love the way that this comedy works, and I love the way that this is edited. I mean, yeah. So many people.
You, Ollie, and Harry are like the 3 people that I like. Well, when I begin to write, I want to like go and watch because like I want. Ollie's got like the like conveying things good. Yes. H Power Guy's got the humor down, and then you've got the like, I'm going to hit you with a sucker punch of emotion at the end, and those are the 3 things I want to.
No. Oh well, thank you. No, yes, I watch both Ollie and H Bomb constantly just to pick up tips from them because, yes, very good.
Mm-hmm. All right, this is from Sir Zhao Zhao. Do you like DuckTales and comic books? I hope you know about Carl Barks and Don Rosa then. Okay, maybe this is a conversation that was happening in the chat. But
I love DuckTales. One of my most popular videos of all time is why the DuckTales theme song is amazing. And it's still a theme song that gets stuck in my head constantly. And now it's going to be stuck in my head all day because of that comment. But the reboot, if anyone has not seen the reboot of DuckTales, it is spectacular. It's so funny, and the animation is beautiful. And yes, and that is like especially the reboot, everything is done in a comic book style. So all the art, all like the lines are like pencil drawn kind of style. All the backgrounds have these like halftone dot textures from like old printings on comics. Even the theme song kind of starts with them jumping out of panels of a comic book. So it's very cool. It's very, comic book stylized in the animation, and just the acting is so good. They got top-notch actors to play the characters. DuckTales is great, especially the reboot. Go check it out.
All right, you heard it here first. How many of you went through an edgy atheist phase in middle school? Yep.
Not in middle school. No, I mean, I was raised very religious all the way up until college. I went to a Bible college. Yeah, and then I was just like, you know what?
My wife did too, actually.
I was like, this is not for me. I don't know if I was ever edgy atheist though. I think I just moved on to like, I don't really like this, but if other people get a kick out of like the good parts of Christianity, then sure. But yeah.
Yeah, me, edgy atheist, was more 18 to 22.
Yeah.
And when I went to university, I changed tune real fast.
Mm.
And then I did an entire master's thesis on Islamophobia. So how far
There
you
you
go?
go.
All right, comic books and politics. You say politics nerd is part of my nerddom. I'm in.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, I still get a lot of kickback from people every time I do politics in a video about comics. People are still like, this is, keep your politics out of my comics. A big part of my Scrolls video was like, look, guys, politics have always been there. You're just not looking hard enough.
I mean, I understand because, like, in my situation, like, I get comments that are like, get your politics out of my history, which is just like,
what? How does that work?
Yeah. So I get it.
Yeah.
All right. Do you think they should make a Batman Beyond movie?
Yes.
That'd be fun.
I would love it. There was a completely false rumor started a few months back that they were going to do a Batman Beyond movie in the style of Into the Spider-Verse, which I would have loved. Into the Spider-Verse is so good, and the animation on that is great. And I would love I would love an animated Batman Beyond movie, but yeah, a live action would be fine. But I don't know, something about that world, that like futuristic Gotham would look really great in like a 3D animated, stylistic kind of way.
No, I was wrong about Black Panther because the last movie I saw in theaters was Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
And it was in January, so I was only a month late to it.
Wow. Well done. Did you love it?
It was really good. I had a lot of fun with it. It is all of the I love that it's another sign that I'm really loving that that we're getting that we've had enough comic book movies now that we're allowed to let the comic book movies be weird.
Yes.
And
like we've had Spider-Man so long that we're just like, here's different Spider people. There you go.
Yeah. Like not long ago, like in like when the first X-Men movie came out, like people were kind of afraid to be weird. And it was like, it made the X-Men movie, like they were all wearing their black leather suits and stuff. And it's like, now they're like, now it's just like, we have Peter Porker on the big screen.
Yes.
It's happening. Wouldn't Scrap Iron Man be considered a villain? Yeah, we said that. Can Plato's philosopher king be leftist? This might be a little bit outside of the comments of the channel, and we are rapidly running out of time. So I'm going to try to, is the society of, I think this is like the society you were talking about in the, in what's that movie? In Captain Marvel, that like left society.
The Kree.
Is it like the Borg?
Kind of. Well, not really, because I think the Supreme Intelligence doesn't like control people's actions. I mean, it does to an extent, like it'll tell you what to do and where to go. But like obviously you have your own autonomy in a sense where like Carol was a part of it. But she was like, you know what, I'm gonna do my own thing. So it's less like the Borg where it's commanding everyone to do certain things and be a part of it, but it still takes all of the information, all the memories, all the history, and everything from everybody, and then is still the leader of the society. But every person in this society still has their own autonomy. So kind of similar but different, I think.
Mm-hmm. In Captain Marvel, the evil Kree military is way more gender equal than the U.S. military. Was that a deliberate part of the movie's feminist message?
Maybe. I don't know. That would be a question for the people who made the movie if it was deliberate, but it's certainly interesting to talk about and think about.
Be a step to say like there's like the double plus unreading of where it's like the move that Captain Marvel is actually anti-feminist. There you go.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't understand this one. This might be a context that you get. Do you think Beth is a clone?
Do I think Beth is a clone?
Maybe I'm missing something.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm missing the context on that one.
Have you guys seen that TV show Humans?
I have not. No.
Yeah, me neither. Is the trend for every movie to be included in a cinematic universe good? There's even a universal monster universe. I think that one's dead, but
Yeah, that's dead now. But
or the Disney villain universe they were going to do at one point.
oh my goodness. No, I don't think the trend is. I think the trend is neutral. I think the execution on a lot of them has been bad for sure.
Most of it at Warner Brothers.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, even the DC stuff. My favorite parts about Wonder Woman and Aquaman, and even Shazam now, are that they're like Aquaman and Wonder Woman. Well, I get yeah. Shazam as well, because I keep forgetting that that's still technically connected to that universe. They're all barely connected together. Like Aquaman has references to Steppenwolf in that movie. Wonder Woman has like obviously it starts and ends with like her getting the photo from Bruce Wayne. Even Shazam has, moments of. Did you see Shazam at all? I imagine not.
No, it's on my list. Whatever happened with the Ezra Miller Flash movie? Wasn't that supposed to come out late last year?
Who knows anymore? I don't know, but
is there supposed to be like a Green Lantern movie like next year? Like
Green Lantern Corps. There's supposed to be a million things, but
they heavily put the brakes on it, didn't they?
They sure did. They wanted to rush Justice League without fleshing out a lot of the characters first, because they wanted that money. But my favorite parts about my favorite 3 DC movies, which are Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and Shazam, not in that order, but I love those 3. And what makes them work is that they're mostly standalone movies where they just focus on those characters, and then there's a tiny thread that connects them, but it's barely anything. It's just that they all kind of exist in the same universe. But yeah,
I was just reading that there's signs that they're going to announce who the new Batman's going to be next week. I am kind of looking forward to. I had this conversation with Thought Slime because I was just saying like James Gunn's Suicide Squad movie.
Yes,
and there's 2 things that came. There's 2 parts that came up. One, I was like, oh, the guy who directed Guardians of the Galaxy is going to direct Suicide Squad. That's cool. Mm-hmm. And then my second thought was, oh man, the guy who directed Slither is going to direct a Suicide Squad. And it's like, if James Gunn is going to like go across the aisle for a bit, I would love if he like does like, you know what, I'm going to do James Gunn stuff, like the weird, gross stuff.
Yes. Yeah, I'm genuinely excited to see his take on that, because that's something that I wanted DC to do, is just take little known characters, stop doing so much Batman and Superman. They're fine and they're great, but also, they took a chance on Suicide Squad, didn't work out super great. We're doing it again with more competence and hopefully less trying to make it into a cohesive universe. Because even Suicide Squad was like, here's Batman, here's Flash, everything's connected. But we don't need that.
Again with feeling. That's what they should just call it. Suicide Squad, again with feeling. How do you feel about that weird Joker trailer?
I love it. It looks so interesting. That's exactly what I want DC to do. Just take characters who are interesting. One of my favorite parts about DC is the villains. So having movies focused on the villains would be really cool. Like, again, Suicide Squad, now this Joker, which seems to be a completely standalone in a completely different universe thing, not connected to anything. I think that's great. This movie, the Joker movie, looks wild and creepy and intense, and I'm here for it. I will support it 100%.
And all I got to say to you people out in Warner Brothers is that Arnold's not doing anything. And if we want to get our Dr. Freeze standalone movie, he would do it in a second.
Oh, he would reprise Mr. Freeze like crazy. Just give him some nice ice puns. He's right up. He's signed the contract already.
He's the only person who I think liked doing that movie from what I've seen behind the scenes.
Yeah, it seems like you gotta have fun with it. And he certainly was having a blast.
Especially, I love that it's like one of the most tragic DC villain backstories. And it's like, I used to see you. And he didn't he make demands behind the scenes that he should be allowed to smoke cigars in the thing? But it's like
Probably
him to do that. And he's like, I don't care.
Look, I'm wearing a robe. It's all good. No, I would genuinely love if they just made more villain movies like Joker. That if they did like a serious take on Mr. Freeze, that would be like super tragic and heartbreaking, and I would love that.
Okay, I'll pitch you something about bringing Batman back, and I'll see what you think.
All right, hit me with it.
So we do Batman, but instead of the origin story of Martha Wayne and the guns and everything like that, do the origin story movie is basically like a kind of adaptation of Year One.
Okay.
And so it starts with him taking down, like, I think the plot of that is like taking down like an organized crime family. It's like, I've solved organized crime in Gotham.
Yes.
And then it's like, oh, but you have like you have unearthed the weirdness, and you go with the weird. I feel like Batman could be like,
I mean,
it could be done. It could like,
yeah. That's kind of what the Chris Nolan movies were, because Batman Begins is very much like a Year One, like taking down organized crime sort of a thing, and then it ends with, and then also, you know, because you're doing this, because you're Batman, because you're being all theatrical, you're bringing out the theatricality in everybody else. Gordon talks about escalation. You're Batman. What's next? Answer: Joker. And then that sets up there.
Yeah. Although it did have Ra's al Ghul, but I guess like,
yeah, that's true. They needed some big villain to stand up against Batman.
I feel like you could do like what you could do is you could do a Dr. Freeze movie and then have do something that they haven't really done in Batman movies yet, which is the Batman as detective type story.
That's all I want, man. Because they're doing, so the idea is, well, never mind. I was gonna say this is what they thought this is what they planned on doing, but it wasn't. It was just something that I've convinced myself that they should do so much that I thought they were gonna do it. I would have loved if they did a Red Hood storyline for Batman, where it was him, you know, dealing with this new murderer in town, trying to figure out who he is, and coming, you know, being a detective and finding out, oh, it's Jason Todd, a former Robin. That would be like a fun detective story for Batman. That would also be very personal and very tragic.
Yeah. I would also love, like, the way that I would love to tell that is if you told it more like a traditional mystery, and instead of like having the, because like a lot of the superhero movies, you have like the parallel stories of the villain and the hero going at the same time. If you didn't have the villain side and it's all about like collecting together and figuring out and like actually making like a true like kind of like a mystery film, that would be interesting to do.
Yeah.
All right, we're getting really close on time, so I've got a few more questions. We're going to do them rapid fire style. How's that sound?
Hit me with them.
Do you think we will ever see Mole Man in the MCU?
All I want is for Mole Man to be the first Fantastic Four villain, because I'm tired of Doctor Doom. So let's do Mole Man. Bring it back to where it started. Love it.
All right. Grey Hulk.
Grey Hulk, I thought was going to happen at some point in the MCU. Now I don't know, but that would be fun for sure.
Thoughts on BreadTube? Also, where is the best place you've been on vacation?
BreadTube. Am I like so out of loop that I don't even know how that got started, that name?
It's the someone made a subreddit for leftist YouTube, and they called it BreadTube.
Oh, that's great. I love it. Good stuff. Vacation wise, I don't know if I don't think I've ever taken a vacation. I'm going to Montana later this year on a true vacation. So that might be my first actual vacation. Hopefully it's good.
Nice. Do you know of any comics that revolve around robots but aren't Terminator type scenarios?
Transformers? I don't know. That's the one that came to mind.
If you want to rapid fire robots, soap opera with robots, that's Transformers.
There you go.
Have you ever read When the Wind Blows?
I have not.
Me neither. I think it's a nuclear apocalypse book, which I seem to be obsessed with, so I should probably read it.
That's cool.
Will we someday see movie adaptations of non-superhero comics classics like Will Eisner's A Contract with God?
I hope so. We've there's a lot of non-superhero related comic book stuff that's been made into movies. I don't know if you would consider Scott Pilgrim to be a superhero thing. I don't think he's a superhero in a traditional sense, but that's a fantastic comic series, and it's my favorite movie of all time. So I am optimistic.
And AMC seems to be going on that route. Walking Dead, Preacher. So they might be something to look at.
Absolutely.
What do you think about Alternate History Hub's video about Thanos snap in real life? I haven't seen it.
Not seen it.
All right. Are the Soup and Carlin brothers conservative? A while back, one of them said he was pro-life. Let's just, for business reasons, not address that one.
Fair enough. I also don't know the answer to that question. So,
what do you think of Hail Satan in the Satanic Temple?
I do not know what that means.
Like the Church of Satan, which is like this kind of like atheist.
Gotcha. No idea.
All right. Last question. Favorite anime?
Oh no, I don't watch anime at all. I'm so sorry. I'm such a dweeb.
Yeah, I don't watch anime either. The easy answer is always Dragon Ball Z. Like,
sure. I'm gonna make my last answer will be a controversial one. I'm gonna say Avatar: The Last Airbender. Is it anime? I'll let you fight about it in the comments, but I'll be gone. So
that'd be a good video. Even though I'm very depressed about it, in a way, I'm low key a little bit psyched for Last Airbender, the TV show.
Yeah,
the live action TV show.
Cautiously optimistic. Yeah.
My wife and I are currently watching through. Well, we finished Avatar. Now we're in The Legend of Korra, and we're having a blast.
Oh, so good. I love it.
Well, now we're in the season that they say is bad of Legend of Korra. We're in the Spirits season. So.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. It gets better. I promise.
It's okay so far.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for coming and speaking to me, Scott, for 2 hours.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was super fun.
Yeah, no problem. I say this all the time. We should have you back, and I should really actually live through on these things at some point.
Yes, I would love it.
Alrighty. Are you streaming tomorrow? Yes, I am. All right. Friends, allies, have an amazing evening, and be real. Before we go, pitch all your stuff.
Oh, yes. Hi. So if you missed it, I'm Scott from Nerdsync, Nerdsync. I make videos about comics and superheroes that teach about real world history, science, philosophy, culture, and art. So if you like being tricked into learning about the real world through your favorite fictional superheroes and comics and sometimes cartoons, go check me out. It's Nerdsync on YouTube. Search for Nerdsync on any social media, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. It's all there.
And for subscribers, I'll see you tomorrow. All right. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.